Mr. Kunstler, turning to the tragedy at Attica, you've been accused of perhaps egging the prisoners on to the terrible events of Bloody Monday in Cell Block D by urging them to hold out for amnesty. Is this true?
This is untrue, and fortunately there were some highly credible people as far as the establishment is concerned with me in the cell block, like Tom Wicker of the New York Times and Congressman Badillo and a whole variety of state legislators. I told the prisoners expressly that the 28 proposals that were accepted were the best they could get. I also told them that it was their decision to make, and their decision was to continue negotiations. If negotiations had continued, it would be over by now, and there would not be a single dead man buried anywhere out of Attica. The state decided to end negotiations, not the prisoners. And
how do you feel about the outcome?
Terrible. I think it's an utter tragedy, both for the hostages and the prisoners, and I think anybody that took part in it must be a much sadder man as time goes on. I don't think any of us can avoid the responsibility that we all failed, and I think blaming one or blaming the other has no consequence anymore.
Would you like to see criminal action brought against the governor and the corrections officers?
Yes, I think they were murderers in the classic sense of the word. I've said it everywhere. They committed an unspeakable crime. They decided to go in shooting against unarmed men, and in doing so they killed their own as well. There was no reason to go in. We pleaded and begged, and that was every man on the committee, despite what his political preferences might have been, what his ideological differences were. Every man from radical to conservative practically got down on his knees and begged the governor for time. Had there been time, we would have successfully negotiated it, because the prisoners had already given up on one of their non-negotiable demands, the removal of the superintendent. And the amnesty one, we were already negotiating with the commissioner when the governor gave the order to go in.
Mr. Kunstler,
negotiations to a breakthrough when Rush came?
Well, there was only one issue left, and that was the question of amnesty, and we had just started to discuss commutation, clemency, pardon, all different degrees of reaching the same result, though not using the name amnesty. And it was all for naught, because the superintendent listened, the commissioner listened, but apparently they were under higher orders, because on Monday morning, just 8 hours after we first raised the commutation issue, the troopers went in.
Mr. Kunstler, you were quoted in Newsweek as saying at a tense moment in the negotiations when Brother Richard, I believe, reported that Commissioner Oswald had sent him a note saying the committee of which you were a part agreed with the commissioner's position, and you might not get out alive, you were told, and you were quoted as saying, "I steel myself to die without screaming when they slit my throat." Did you feel this ominous sense of danger throughout the negotiations?
Yes, and I think I was wrong in feeling it. I think I had a classic middle-class, white, subconscious reaction to black prisoners who were in control of a situation. And I think now that they would not have harmed anybody, hostages as well, whom they did not harm. And I think that my reaction was one that grew out of my own background. I thought, and I still think now, even more so after I found out that they didn't cut throats when the onslaught came, that they were far more honorable inside the jail than the people outside the jail. But at the moment, I was frightened, because I had never been in a situation in which someone said to me, who has complete control over my life or death, that the men inside have decided to kill you. And I think that that's a situation that you have to live through to understand. I didn't want to die, but I was damn well convinced that I was going to do it without a sound if I had to.